You've seen the videos. Medellin glowing in golden light, rooftop pools surrounded by mountains, a latte in one hand and a MacBook in the other. Colombia looks like the new paradise. Beautiful, cheap, and full of life. Influencers swear it's the ultimate escape. Luxury apartments for half the price, Wi-Fi fast enough for remote work, food that's rich and colorful, and nightlife that feels endless. That's the version the internet sells, the highlight reel. And it's convincing. Americans see that and think, why not me? The cost of living is low, the climate's warm, and the culture feels electric. You can rent a modern apartment with a city view for what a small studio costs back home. There's an entire digital nomad scene built around this fantasy, young professionals trading cubicles for palm trees and calling it freedom. But Colombia isn't a postcard. It's not just beaches, parties, and perfect weather. The real Colombia is complex. It's a country still rebuilding from its past, balancing tradition with rapid modernization, and carrying social structures that outsiders rarely understand. On the surface, it feels easy. But beneath that beauty, Colombia asks for patience, cultural respect, and awareness. Things you can't capture in a 10-second TikTok video. So before you pack up your life chasing the social media version of paradise, understand this: Colombia will give you peace, color, and community, but only if you take the time to learn the real country behind the filters. Here's what you won't see in the travel vlogs. Race in Colombia is complicated. It's not the same kind of racism you find in the US, but it's still there, sitting quietly in the background of daily life. Colombia is one of the most diverse countries in Latin America. You'll find Afro-descendant communities along the Caribbean and Pacific coasts, indigenous groups in the mountains, and a mix of European, African, and indigenous ancestry across the country. But that diversity doesn't mean equality. Afro-Colombians make up around 10 to 15% of the population, yet they're more likely to live in poverty, have less access to education, and be underrepresented in media and government. Color still dictates privilege. The lighter your skin, the more doors tend to open. You'll see it in advertising, on television, even in politics, where lighter-skinned faces dominate. This isn't always out of malice. It's woven into the culture through centuries of colonial hierarchy. People may not talk about it, but it's visible in who gets served first, who's called beautiful, and who gets followed in a store. Anti-Black bias often hides behind class language. People will say, it's not about race, it's about poverty. But race and poverty in Colombia are deeply linked. Many Afro-Colombian regions were historically neglected by the government. Places like Choco and Buenaventura, where infrastructure and opportunity lag far behind major cities. So while race might not always be spoken, it's seen in who gets access to upward mobility. Now, for Black Americans, the experience can be confusing. You're not seen the same way Afro-Colombians are, but you're also not seen as white or local. Some Colombians admire you. The American accent carries prestige. You might even experience a kind of elevated status because being American signals money and education. But that admiration can flip quickly into fetishization, curiosity that treats you as novelty, not personhood. On the other hand, darker-skinned Americans often experience something closer to what Afro-Colombians face. You might notice small acts of bias, assumptions about your background, extra stares, or subtle social distancing. None of it may feel overt, but it adds up. It's not the loud, aggressive racism of the US. It's quiet, cultural, and coded. You don't escape racism by leaving America. You just meet a new version of it. In Colombia, it's not always about hate. It's about hierarchy. It's about proximity to whiteness and how that still defines beauty, status, and success. The sooner you understand that, the easier it is to navigate with awareness instead of frustration. The truth is, Colombia is a country in transition, proud of its diversity, but still learning how to embrace it fully. As a foreigner, especially a Black American, you become part of that conversation whether you like it or not. The key is to walk in with open eyes, not naive ones. Colombia today is safer than it has been in decades, but safer doesn't mean safe. The danger looks different now. It's less about cartels and shootouts and more about scams, targeted theft, and situational awareness. Colombia is safe if you stop thinking like an American tourist. Foreigners are often seen as opportunities. Scams are common. Fake rental listings, overcharged taxi rides, or friendly locals who suddenly need financial help. Petty theft is the everyday risk. Pickpockets operate in bus terminals, bars, and busy markets. It's not violent most of the time, but it's quick. If you set your phone down on a cafe table, it might not be there when you look back up. The bigger danger in cities like Medellin and Bogota comes through dating apps. There are real cases of foreigners being drugged and robbed after meeting someone on Tinder or Bumble. The drug used is called burundanga. It can erase memory and make victims compliant. It's odorless, tasteless, and leaves people waking up hours later with empty wallets and no idea what happened. It's not a myth. It's documented by hospitals and police. The solution is simple. Meet in public, watch your drink, and never invite strangers to your apartment. Express kidnappings, short-term abductions where victims are forced to withdraw money from ATMs, still happen occasionally, though far less than in the early 2000s. They're usually crimes of opportunity in smaller cities or border areas, not organized campaigns. Still, the risk rises when foreigners flaunt wealth or move carelessly. And while the country feels peaceful today, it's important to understand why. For decades, Colombia's violence stemmed from internal conflict, mainly between the government, paramilitary groups, and guerrilla forces like the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. The FARC controlled large parts of rural Colombia during the 1980s and 1990s, funding their operations through kidnappings and drug trafficking. Tens of thousands of Colombians were displaced or killed during that period. In 2016, the Colombian government signed a historic peace agreement with FARC, effectively ending one of Latin America's longest-running civil wars. The group agreed to disarm, and many of its members reintegrated into civilian life. The truce dramatically reduced nationwide violence, opening the door for tourism and foreign investment. But peace is not perfection. Some dissident factions refuse to demobilize, and smaller paramilitary and criminal groups still operate in isolated regions, particularly along the Pacific coast and Venezuelan border. Those areas are not where tourists or expats typically go, but they remain reminders that Colombia's peace is still fragile. So yes, Colombia is safe. If you know where you are, stay alert and move with local logic. Street awareness isn't paranoia, it's survival skill. Locals do it instinctively. They walk confidently, keep valuables out of sight, and trust their instincts. Do that, and Colombia feels welcoming. Forget that, and it will remind you quickly that paradise here always comes with context. People love to say Colombia is so cheap, but that only tells half the story. Yes, it can be affordable, if you live like a local. But the moment you try to live like an American, Colombia stops being cheap. Let's start with what is inexpensive. Rent can be affordable, especially outside the popular foreigner zones. In cities like Medellin, you can find a clean, modern apartment in a local neighborhood for under $600 a month. Fresh produce, local meat, and restaurant meals are reasonable. A full plate of rice, beans, and chicken might cost $5 or less. Public transportation is also cheap and reliable. Buses, metros, and moto taxis get you almost anywhere for a few cents on the dollar compared to U.S. prices. But what's expensive catches most people off guard. Anything imported, electronics, Western groceries, name brand products, comes with heavy import taxes. A box of cereal or jar of peanut butter can cost triple what it does in the States. Medical insurance for foreigners can also add up quickly, especially if you want access to private hospitals. Local healthcare is good, but not free unless you're a legal resident paying into the system. Private schooling is another hidden cost. Many expats with children find that Colombian public schools don't match the level of education they expect, so they turn to international schools, and those tuition fees rival American prices. The same goes for long-term rentals marketed toward foreigners. Landlords know who you are, and the prices reflect that. Then there's driving, one of the biggest misconceptions about life here. Owning a car in Colombia is rarely worth it. Roads can be chaotic, narrow, and unpredictable. Traffic in Bogota or Medellin can turn a 5-mile trip into an hour-long crawl. Parking is scarce, gas prices are high, and import taxes make vehicles far more expensive than in the U.S. A used car can cost nearly double what it would back home, and the insurance, maintenance, and registration process are bureaucratic nightmares. That's why most expats hire a driver. It's surprisingly affordable compared to the U.S. Many drivers work part-time or freelance and charge reasonable hourly or daily rates. A reliable local driver not only navigates the traffic but also helps you understand neighborhoods, avoid unsafe areas, and handle the day-to-day chaos that comes with Colombian roads. To find one, most expats go through trusted local referrals, relocation groups, or hotels that work with licensed drivers. It's not a luxury. It's a smart investment in safety and sanity. So yes, Colombia can be cheap, but only if you let go of the American lifestyle. If you need imported goods, private schools, and daily convenience, you'll spend as much or more than you did in the States. The secret is adapting, not importing your old habits. Because the moment you try to live American in Colombia, it stops being affordable and starts becoming complicated. Let's talk about the one thing that frustrates almost every expat: immigration. Colombia loves visitors, but it doesn't make it easy to stay. The country has opened its doors to digital nomads, retirees, and investors, but those doors come with heavy paperwork and rules that change often. The digital nomad visa sounds simple at first. You just need proof of remote work, a valid passport, and health insurance, right? In reality, the process is strict and slow. You have to prove you earn a consistent income, usually around $1,000 a month or more, from a company outside Colombia. Freelancers and business owners often struggle to qualify unless they can show contracts or tax records proving steady income. All documents must be officially translated into Spanish and notarized, often both in your home country and again in Colombia. Once you've got that sorted, prepare for patience. Immigration offices move at their own pace. Sometimes online applications vanish mid-process or requirements change without notice. Many expats end up hiring lawyers or visa facilitators, local professionals who know how to navigate the chaos and communicate with the migration office. Their help can mean the difference between approval and rejection. Even after you're approved, everyday logistics stay complicated. Opening a bank account as a foreigner is difficult unless you have a long-term visa or residency card. Most banks require proof of local income or a Colombian tax ID known as a NIT. Without that, many expats rely on international accounts, which means constant currency conversions and withdrawal fees. You can live that way, but it's not convenient. And here's the truth that surprises people most: residency doesn't equal citizenship. Colombia may let you live there for years, but citizenship takes time, usually 5 to 10 years, and comes with language requirements, background checks, and financial documentation. Dual citizenship is allowed, but the process is slow and bureaucratic. Colombia isn't trying to make it easy for outsiders to start over. It wants commitment. The deeper truth is this: Colombia tolerates foreigners, but it doesn't easily embrace them long term. You're welcome to enjoy the culture, spend your money, and explore, but true belonging takes consistency. It means learning Spanish, understanding the system, and proving you're not just another short-term nomad chasing the next cheap view. So before you imagine Colombia as your forever home, be honest about what you're ready for. Because paradise here isn't denied, it's earned. Let's get into something most people don't talk about: relationships. This is where the fantasy of living abroad often collides with emotional reality, especially for Black American women. In Colombia, you might feel something you haven't felt in a long time: visibility. You stand out, people notice you. Some of that attention feels like admiration. The confidence, the style, the energy, it draws people in. In a culture that celebrates beauty, being different can be magnetic, but it can also be misleading. You might be treated like a novelty, not a person. Many Black American women describe being seen as exotic. That word sounds flattering at first, but underneath it is distance. It means you're admired for being unfamiliar, not understood for being yourself. Local men can be charming, but the cultural differences show up fast. Dating in Colombia tends to move quickly, emotionally and physically, but long-term consistency isn't guaranteed. Family values are strong here, and gender roles are traditional. That dynamic can create tension for women who are used to independence and equality. Then there's language. Even if you speak Spanish, cultural nuance takes time. What feels respectful or affectionate in one culture can feel possessive or distant in another. And without that shared understanding, small miscommunications turn into major disconnects. Beyond romance, loneliness can creep in quietly. You can be surrounded by people, at parties, cafes, language exchanges, and still feel invisible. Locals have deep, lifelong friendships that don't form overnight. You'll be welcomed, but not immediately woven in. The expat community helps, but it's transient. People come and go with their visas and contracts, leaving you starting over again and again. For many, the initial excitement turns into isolation. You realize the hardest part of living abroad isn't the paperwork or cost. It's building something real. That's where your emotional readiness matters more than your passport. If you haven't made peace with solitude, Colombia will force you to face it. The truth is, Colombia can teach you a lot about yourself, how you connect, how you love, and how you handle being truly alone. It's not about romance or attention, it's about emotional growth. The people who thrive here aren't just chasing beauty, they're building depth. Here's what no one posts after they move: the silence that comes when the adventure starts to feel empty. Because even in paradise, loneliness finds a way in. At first, everything feels alive: new streets, new people, new possibilities. But then the novelty fades, and what's left is the reality that you're living somewhere that doesn't fully know you. The language barrier starts to sting. You can order food, make small talk, maybe joke a little. But real conversations, the kind that feed your soul, are harder to come by. You start to miss being understood without having to explain every word. Then there's the cultural gap. Colombians are warm and social, but deep friendships take time. People here grow up with the same neighbors, same schools, same circles. You can be friendly with everyone and still feel like an outsider. That feeling of connection that came so easily back home doesn't happen here overnight, and sometimes it never happens at all. It's not that the country isn't welcoming, it's that community here runs deep, not wide. You might meet people who adore you, but the roots take years to plant. And when most expats around you are transient, staying 6 months, a year, maybe 2, everything feels temporary. The friendships, the routine, even your sense of belonging. This is where people go quiet on YouTube. They don't leave Colombia because it's dangerous or expensive. They leave because after all the beauty and adventure, they start to feel invisible. That's the truth about living abroad that no one prepares you for. Colombia can heal you or break you. It all depends on what you're bringing with you. If you come here running from something, stress, pain, burnout, or disappointment, Colombia will give you a distraction, not peace. The colors, the warmth, the slower pace, they'll soothe you for a while. But this country has a way of holding up a mirror. And whatever you haven't dealt with back home, you'll end up facing here, alone, with fewer distractions to hide behind. If you come grounded, emotionally steady, financially prepared, and clear about your reasons, Colombia can transform you. It can teach you patience, presence, and how to live slower without feeling left behind. It can show you joy and simplicity, walking through a market, talking to strangers in broken Spanish, watching the city lights fade into the mountains at night. This place has a heartbeat that forces you to slow down and listen. Boundaries matter here too. The pace, the people, the temptation to relax too much. It can swallow you if you don't have structure. Set boundaries for how you spend, who you trust, and what you expect. That discipline is what keeps freedom from turning into chaos. Colombia doesn't owe you anything. It doesn't bend to make your transition easier, but it does reward honesty with yourself and with the culture you're walking into. The people who thrive here don't come looking for an escape. They come looking for understanding, a new way to see themselves through the rhythm of a different country. You should not go to Colombia to escape yourself. You should go to meet yourself in a place that's beautiful, unpredictable, challenging, and alive. Because if you're ready, Colombia doesn't just change your view, it changes your pace, your patience, and your perspective. If you're seriously thinking about life outside the US, don't do it blind. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to listen to our podcast. Every week, we discuss what starting over abroad really looks like: the good, the hard, and everything in between. Because moving abroad isn't about running away from something, it's about loving yourself enough to know you deserve better, having the courage to embrace something new, and the resilience to commit to building something better, one smart decision at a time.